Hi, everyone. So, something's changing in how cinema moves around the world. Stories don't have to come from traditional power centers anymore, or at least they don't have to only come from there. The old model where you had to be in Los Angeles or Mumbai or London to reach global audience is kind of breaking down slowly, unevenly, and not without resistance, probably, but it's happening. Filmmakers working from their own cities, their own cultures, their own streets are finding ways to reach global audience with their stories. It's of course not easy, and the system is not designed for it. But local tales are breaking borders nowadays. And here on South Asians in Cinema Collective podcast, we will be talking to South Asian artists and filmmakers who are proving exactly this, no matter where they are based at. My guest today is Nuhash Humayun, a Bangladeshi filmmaker who is proving over and over again that local stories can travel. What fascinates me about his work is that he's not trying to make universal films that could be set anywhere. He's making aggressively local films about Dhaka traffic, Bangladeshi superstitions, South Asian class, and gender dynamics, and it is resonating across the globe. If Nuhash is right, if deep locality is actually the path to global resonance, then that changes everything about how we think about filmmaking, about audience, and about which stories get told and from where. Today, we are talking about how he is building that model in real time. Nuhash, welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you here. And before we dive into how you are doing all of this, let me start here. How are you doing, and how does this phase of your career feel into you right now at this moment?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the lovely introduction. It's already getting me thinking about sort of where our stories are going. Um, right now, I would say I'm at a turning point. I'm at a crossroads in my career, because there is an opportunity to tell local stories that can go really far. There are also opportunities to sort of scale up and go bigger and
Mhm.
kind of go into the more traditional systems of telling stories, or whether it's based in LA or I don't know in Bollywood. So, what what is the right path, or is there a way to do both? So, what is the ideal kind of trajectory?
So, if I mean, before I get into the heavy stuff about doing work internationally, transnationally, I really want to get to your point of origin. Like, how did you start being a filmmaker? When did you know that this is what you wanted to do in life?
Right. Yeah, I started pretty early. I think I was 13 years old. We had like a little digital camera at home that my mom bought. I don't know if, yeah, digital cameras are like now popular again. They were stopped being popular. They were a thing in the 90s and early 2000s. So we had one that had a video function. So I was making these videos with my friends. I was making
Mhm.
short films, and they were wacky and weird. And, you know, we made films about Bangladeshi superheroes and Bangladeshi sort of like a, horror film being set during the Eid holiday. So yeah, it was just like really fun stuff that I did with my friends. And I think all my friends grew up and I didn't. I'm still doing the same thing essentially. And I think what I was trying to do then at the age of 13 versus now in my early 30s is the exact same thing, which is as a kid, I was without knowing it, without having a label for it, I was trying to tell stories in genres and moods that I like a
Mhm.
superheroes or horror or action and adventure. But I was trying to do that in a Bangladeshi way. And I was doing that as a kid without
Mhm.
really putting a label on it, right? Like right now I do the same thing, but I also give talks and go to podcasts and intellectualize the process and talk about sort of combining like local culture and sort of international sort of genres and mixing the two, and is local, global, and all of that. But I don't know. I feel like I've always been doing this, and it's always just it's. I think a big thing about storytelling sometimes is when it comes from the heart, it's genuine. So for me as a kid, I was not overthinking it. I was just trying to make what was fun, and I just kind of I'm trying to still do the same, despite being a lot more aware of kind of where it can fall in society, if that makes sense.
Right, right. No, that absolutely makes sense. And thank you for answering this with that much honesty. I was wondering because when I was preparing for this interview, I was, of course, reading a lot of your other interviews, and you often describe yourself as self-taught. And now, even you have told that you got this camcorder, sort of digital camera at home, and that's how you started. So I'd love to know what was that in practical terms? How did you actually learn to make films, and how did you decide what you wanted to make?
Wait, I think self-taught is a good way to say I never really went to film school, but I
Mm-hmm,
went to so many labs and programs that supported me.
mm-hmm,
I think that was a big step in my career. I went to the Asian Film Academy, which is in South Korea. So that's a 3-month program where you just make a film in South Korea with a bunch of filmmakers you just met.
mm-hmm,
I went to the Sundance Labs in America. And that was great because, again, I think I was the first Bangladeshi to do the Sundance Screenwriting Lab. So again, that was a great experience. So yeah, these little nuggets that are of wisdom that I'm collecting along the way. But essentially, because I started uh, when I was 13 making films with my friends, without really knowing how to edit, knowing how to shoot, I think there is an element of that um still in my work, hopefully, like a spirit of adventure and experimentation, as opposed to sort of, traditional form. So even if I have a script I'm happy with, or I'm on set and I have the actors, I have everything, if I'm not having fun on that day, if I feel like, okay, I'm kind of getting bored shooting this scene, that means something's wrong and we need to change something up. We need to change the location. The actors are sitting. Maybe they need to stand. I don't know. Something needs to be different. So, yeah, I've obviously, since the age of 13, studied filmmaking a lot and watched a lot of films, but I do rely on instinct and gut feeling and emotion. I think those are, uh, yeah, very underrated, perhaps, aspects of the creative process.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much. And when you were speaking about having fun when you were doing your work, I was thinking of Pitkata Shah, the first Shah, and it had a lot of your friends, non-actors, in it, and that is probably one aspect of fun we get to see from an audience perspective. But I'm sure, like, you define it in multiple terms in multiple stages of creative process. Nuj, you spoke of the very globally renowned, one of the most best sort of where talented people go to, the labs, the international labs. I'd love to know, like, when you were just getting started from Bangladesh, how did you actually get into these labs? I mean, was it hard for you to be selected because you were based in Bangladesh? Was it hard for you to go through the application process? And how did it finally feel when you were there and when you were walking into the rooms of those labs as a Bangladeshi filmmaker?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like, first of all, with the Sundance Lab and a lot of these programs, anyone can apply. Yes, there's an application fee to a lot of them. Sometimes you can get a waiver, but again, it's not a really high fee.
Mhm,
So basically, there are a lot of labs and programs available for first-time filmmakers
mhm,
or filmmakers from diverse backgrounds. I just did a program last year called Pillars, that is Riz Ahmed's sort of fellowship for Muslim filmmakers.
mhm,
Uh, that it's a program that takes you to New York, to London, to LA. It's a 1-year extensive program and comes with a grant. It comes with a $25,000 grant that you can use to make a film or do anything with. And again, the question is, how many people know about this stuff? How many people? I think it's almost like it's all out there, and that's almost a problem with the internet. It's vast. There's so much out there, like, I have so many people come up to me sometimes at like a talk or something and be like, I want to get started. How do I start? I'm like, dude, you have to figure that out for yourself. It's all out there. If you really want to be a filmmaker, if you really want to learn, just go online and just do a search and find things that are opportunities that are available. And there are plenty, whether it's in subcontinent or internationally. But I think one of the things that hold us back is just the vastness of the opportunities and to actually look for it. But the other thing I think is, for at least for me, I can only speak for myself, is there was a level of insecurity about, as a Bangladeshi, can I make it? I remember the first time I heard about the Sundance Labs was during the Asian Film Academy when I was in South Korea. There's another filmmaker, this Chinese filmmaker. She got into the Sundance writing lab, and she was telling me, "Oh no, look, you're really talented. You're a really great writer. You should apply to the Sundance Lab. Uh, and I see you working in Hollywood someday." And I was like, "Oh my god, come on, that's stop joking around. No, they're not going to take some kid from Bangladesh." And I think there is when you come from such a underrepresented community, sometimes you're censoring yourself. Sometimes you are the person holding yourself back. Or, I see so many people speak with a lot of confidence, whereas I kind of underline the fact that I'm from Bangladesh as if, oh, sorry, I'm from really far away. Sorry, I don't belong here. So kind of you're shooting yourself in the foot before even getting into the room kind of scenario. So yeah, I think a lot of it is trying to tell myself that I belong. Um, I think that is the first step. There's always this step in the application process, whatever you're applying to. I think people feel the same way when they're applying to, like, I don't know, Harvard or like some really big school, and the application is in front of them. And you're just looking at it, and it says a question like, "Oh, why do you belong in this community?" And you're like, "Oh, why do I belong here? Do I belong here?" And there's this like
Mhm.
existential crisis that comes out. So I think, that is the biggest step when you feel like the world doesn't know you, or the world, you have not been represented enough, which is all the more reason for us to get out there and do things we haven't done before.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, I work in academia, so I'm seeing it from a very different angle. Of course, the underrepresentation is not as severe as the film industry, maybe the global film industry, if I compare. But yeah, when you were reflecting back on how you felt, I was relating a lot. So I'd love to know for myself, how do you get over this feeling of insecurity when you are standing in a global space where actually we are very much marginalized?
Um, I think for me, the simplest thing is to just make films that I believe in. Really, it's just, you can't really grasp the vastness
Hmm.
of where we stand, versus where we should stand, and change that. All I can do is make a film, make a series, make a short, write my next script. And hopefully, if I do a good enough job, that gets not just me, but everyone I work with, my actor, my musician, my like composer, they all get an opportunity to be on a bigger platform. And, like when I did Moshari in 2022, and we won South by Southwest and a bunch of other awards. And I remember Variety predicted we'd win the Oscars, and we came on the Oscar sort of long list. And yeah, I just remember so many people learning what the word Moshari meant because we didn't have an
Hmm.
English title for the film. So they had to discover by watching the film that Moshari meant mosquito
Hmm.
net. And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, I guess I'm teaching a lot of people Bengali, which again is, the seventh largest spoken language in the world.
Hmm.
But we don't acknowledge it. We don't kind of give it that power. So yeah, I think honestly, there are these vast problems that we like in the world, right? Or, about our place in the world. To think about it that in such a big scale, it's only going to overwhelm you. All you can do is, I don't know, write your next paper, make your next film, work on your next project, whatever field you're in. And the field that I'm in, I can just tell the next story. And sometimes I think about sort of, oh, how am I representing my people? Am I doing the right thing? But again, you can't get too lost in the politics of representation,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, I have to tell a good story. And I think that's most important thing. I need to entertain an audience, and I need to entertain myself. And as long as I know I'm Bangladeshi, I'm from an
Hmm.
underrepresented background, or whatever you want to, however you want to sort of put it. So anything that I have to say, hopefully, will have maybe a slightly unique perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And I was also thinking about when you were answering, because I met you first in the International Film Festival Rotterdam, and you were showing one of your work, Shaw. And I remember audiences coming out after watching the film, and they were endlessly talking about how the film didn't have any VFX or horror sort of jump scares and makeup. And it is a very locally rooted story, but it made them feel something. They could feel the horror in it. So probably that tells a lot about being genuine about your stories, and that maybe gives it some sort of confidence in a global stage. Uh, I'll come back to one of your major early projects, which is Sincerely Yours, Dhaka, and that was a anthology film with 11 directors, if I'm not wrong. Can you tell me a bit about how you got involved with this project? And I remember we, as young Bangladeshis, were very excited when it went to Busan. And how did it actually feel for you? Because you were just kind of starting out. How was that?
Yeah, it was great. I think that was again one of those a great project to get, and the producer of that, Abushai Iman, great
Mm-hmm.
filmmaker producer, he was looking for young talent who'd never made a feature before to work on this anthology film. And I think I was just, on the coming, making some shorts here and there. I did one sort of TV drama or something. So yeah, he asked me to pitch a story, and I really liked the story that I had. It was about a background artist for Bangla cinema who really wanted to be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his story, sort of a drama, and yeah, it was, I think, honestly, that project changed my life because we were just like each filmmaker was making an individual short, and then it was combined to make this like anthology film with 11 filmmakers. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember the world premiere at Busan and walking my first red carpet and seeing my film with an international audience who don't know me, don't speak my language, don't know my culture, but they're watching this film. Um, and enjoying it. And I think that created this spark. I just knew that we have a long way to go and we could go really, really far with uh Bangladeshi stories. And it got me excited about sort of like what I want, because yeah, I it's like you have to ask yourself, what do you want? Do you want to be famous? Do you want to be rich? Do you what are you looking for? In that moment I was like, my God, I like this feeling. I like this feeling of bringing my work to an audience that does not know me or knows nothing about me or my culture. Like there's something really powerful in that feeling. And yeah, I just love kind of going to film festivals and trying new food and just enjoying the vibes. Yeah.
So after that tremendous experience in Busan International Film Festival, did anything change for you in terms of how you thought about your own films or where they might belong? I mean,
Well,
at the moment when you decided that you wanted to go for festivals and really resonate your work across the globe.
I remember Sincerely Yours Taco was an anthology film, right, with 11 directors.
Mhm.
I remember the feeling I had then, which maybe is a little selfish or something. I thought, this film is doing really well. I think if it wasn't 11 filmmakers and if it was just myself, it would do better.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, if I could get rid of the other 10 filmmakers, it was just me, just my film, I think I'd do really good. I think this would be even better. So, um, I realized that I have to make my own shorts and make my own things that go to festivals or sort of
Mhm.
I take out there next, and find my own path because it's not that the other filmmakers were bad or I was better than them, but I just felt like I was trying something a little different than what my other contemporaries were, and I felt like I deserve the opportunity to explore how
Mhm.
far my work can go on its own and not tied to other filmmakers.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And I want to know a bit more about your creative process. For example, Pet Katasha, which was a horror anthology series, and that is one of my most favorite work of yours. You crowdsourced superstitions from people across Bangladesh via Facebook, if I remember correctly. Can you please walk through these process? How did you collect those stories and what exactly were you looking for? Because in Bangladesh, crowdsourcing story is probably not a common path to go through.
Well, I was crowdsourcing the superstitions themselves because I was trying to see what are the most common superstitions we have.
Hmm.
Um, and then I was trying to build the story around the most common ones. So it gave me enough freedom because the core idea was crowdsourced, but the actual story around it was mine. And again, I think superstitions are often incomplete little chunks of story. Like the superstition about um the Nishi duck is that don't go if you hear a voice calling to you near a water body, don't listen to that voice. It might be a Nishi, this entity that sort of grabs you into the water
Hmm.
and drowns you. Now that's it. That's the superstition. It doesn't have a backstory. There are no characters. There's no theme. It's just this much that we know. So it was up to me, the filmmaker, to develop the rest of the story around it, to
Hmm.
make it, oh, it's a man looking for hearing his ex-girlfriend's voice, and it's about depression, and it's a character who dealt with suicidal thoughts, and sort of make it a story about uh, grief in a sense. So again, so all these layers that I could put in because the initial superstition had so many opportunities to sort of take it in different places.
Hmm. Thank you. And when you were making this series, which is very much rooted in Bengali superstition, folklore, however you want to define it, did you deliberately want this to cross borders? I want to know, did you think of an audience you wanted to reach with this?
No, never. I just thought it was for Bangladeshis. I never even thought about actually that Greater Bengal because
Hmm.
I was just in Mumbai for different project, and I had people come up to me and tell me that they really like that, and I thought, oh wow, I didn't even realize that the superstition we have in Bangladesh also bleeds into India because again, we were all the same place not so long ago. We all kind of share the same roots. So I never thought about any of this stuff. Made it for a very low budget with about things that I thought were mine and my people's. But it turns out the definition of my people keeps extending. And I even remember at Rotterdam or at Rain Dance or Fantasia when that show was being shown, it was such a lovely response. And kept being confused, going, huh, how come these people are understanding these stories? These stories have nothing to do, like some British guy or this Canadian family should not be able to relate to Bangladeshi superstition. But then there's something about mythology and superstition that translates. There's something about it that, like, we all have versions of that in our culture. So people came up to me saying, oh, like, we have very different stories like this in our culture, so we kind of get it. We kind of get the vibe. And I was like, okay, there is something in this that is transcending borders and boundaries that is powerful. But at the same time, I don't want to overthink the you don't want to overthink the how far your story is going to go when you're writing it or when you're making it. I think
Hmm.
that should be a little bit of the creative process and say
Mm.
that.
Is this still the process now that you know how fun and how absolutely wonderful it is to be standing on a global stage and see your work resonate across so many communities and so many people? Is that the same way you are still thinking about audience and crossing borders?
I wish I could go back to that innocence, honestly, that I had when I was making that kind of show in Moshe without any idea of what a film festival is or any of
Hmm.
that stuff. It just kind of making having fun. Because right now I feel like I'm too aware. I know all this stuff and I'm working on a film right now. And what happens is even when you're trying to finance the film or you're trying to pitch the film, people are like,
Hmm.
oh, which audience is this for? Is this for a local audience or a global audience? Which film festival are you targeting? So there are all these kind of metrics that people ask you
Hmm.
before even making the film. I'm like, I haven't even made the thing. I don't know. But then you have to have answers, right? Because you can't just say, I don't know. You need money from producers and financiers and you need to sound confident. So, you have to come up with all these answers, but hopefully it's possible to still make the creative process feel have that same naivete, that youthful energy when creating stole. Um, all I know is that if you tell a good enough story, it's gonna go places. Like a lot of people ask me for feedback or, oh, like how do I get into these festivals? What do I do? What is the strategy? I'm like, the strategy is make something you care about, make something that you enjoy making. If you enjoyed making it, that joy will bleed through the screen. It'll bleed through the frames of the YouTube link or the Vimeo link or the theater, whatever format you filmed in. It's going to glow out and people will feel that, okay, this might not be perfect. There's some problems. It's rough around the edges, but whoever made it had a really, really good time. And whoever's watching it is going to feel that too. When I was doing Moshari and I finished that short, it was my first time doing a horror short film. And I asked a
Mhm.
lot of Bangladeshi producers I knew, what do I do with this? How, can you help send this to a festival? Because what I knew was there's a producer and the producer's job is to send this to places. And I
Mhm.
still see this happen a lot where directors tie up with producers going like, oh, that producer has been to Cannes before and that producer did this. And so this producer can kind of help me get there. So I was trying to do that. And then a lot of the producers said, we've never seen a film like this before. This is a Bangladeshi horror film. We don't know what to do with it. We don't think the places we go to would be the right fit for it. So they weren't rude. They were trying to be helpful, but they were honest that their path might not be my path.
Mhm.
So I kind of had to find my own path for it. I applied to South by Southwest, which was a great festival with a great genre fit to it. Same with Fantasia, same with Rain Band. So I kind of found my own lane, which brought me a lot of success because it was like sort of the right pieces of the puzzles coming together. You can send a good film to the wrong festival. It's almost, I would say, a lot of times when people face rejection from a festival, they think, oh, this means my film is not good enough. It's more helpful to think about it like curation. Imagine you have a painting and there are all these museums and you're bringing your painting to each museum. Now, each museum has its own theme, it has its own vibe and its own aura, right?
Mhm.
So if you get rejected from this one museum, it doesn't mean you're bad. It's just that once you look at the other paintings, you kind of get a pattern. You kind of get a sense that, oh, this is what they're going for.
Mhm.
My thing is not what they're going for. That's not their vibe. So a lot of it is just vibes, honestly, and finding the right fit. Is my film the right fit for Cannes, for Sundance, for Venice, for South by Southwest, whatever? But I think honestly, the core advice I would have for a filmmaker to figure all this stuff out is just make a better movie, just make something more interesting. And I
Yeah.
think this is the biggest problem. Like I think I don't know, a lot of the films coming out of South Asia, or at least
Mhm.
Bangladesh, they're kind of the same. Either it's kind of poverty porn, it's the same kind of sad, oh, here's like the sad life of a person suffering in Bangladesh. And it's either a diasporic lens or, oh, she's a villager, or, oh, look at how much pain and suffering. And like, we kind of think that, oh, this is what a festival movie is supposed to look like. So we make it, we keep making it. And I'm like, who's who's this for? Because the people who are suffering, that community is not getting to see it. It's not for them. Like like it's a bunch of like kind of upper middle class or middle class people telling stories about poor people or the
Mhm.
diaspora or whatever, and it's kind of feels. I don't know if it's as authentic as it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's more authentic to like tell the story that you really want to tell, as opposed to looking at festivals and kind of, again, it's like that curation. It's like taking a peek into a museum, seeing what they're looking at, and then painting something similar, or like using ChatGPT or something and like making something up because, oh, I think this should belong. And yeah, I think, again, if you make something that you really, really want to make and
Mhm.
that you have that love for, again, I think the passion will bleed through. So I don't know, sometimes a biology filmmaker or any friend from anywhere will show me a short or a feature, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you really care about this. I don't know if this is really you. Something feels off. I feel like I've seen this film before.
Hmm.
And we complain a lot about mainstream cinema. We complain about Bollywood movies, about Hollywood movies, about superhero
Mhm.
movies. I think that same complaint can sometimes be true about art house films, where
Mhm.
they're all kind of boring and the same way those superhero movies or whatever are. So yeah, just be authentic and be honest and question if this has been done before. If
Mhm.
so, what is an angle that only you can bring to it? And if you can bring in that angle and that perspective that makes it unique, then you don't have to think about that. The strategy will come to you. People will come to you to
Mhm.
display that, showcase that work. But if you've already made the film, and then that's fine. Make the next one. Use that. Use what you learned from it for the next one and make something better.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you, Nuhash. Since we are talking about films having certain expectations that we are going to an international festival and people around the world have certain notions or prejudice about us, and there's this huge burden on filmmakers. I don't know where that exactly comes from, of course, but there's this huge burden that you have to fit in this certain box, otherwise it's not a festival film. Uh, so, how did you know, as a very young filmmaker from Bangladesh, that you wanted to go out of this box? You don't want to make poverty porn and you want to tell your authentic, genuine story. Of course, we are over and over talking about being authentic and being genuine to your work. But of course, it's a hard thing to figure out because, first of all, you are coming from a place where this has not been done before. And second, you are going on a global stage where there are no role models like you. So it can be kind of baffling to figure out for young filmmakers. So I would love to know, how did you figure this out so early?
Right. I would say that again, part of it was just not knowing, was just being young and again, I was doing this since I was 13. You know, when I
Mhm.
was making
Mhm.
those films with my friend, I don't think I was thinking about festivals or poverty porn or any of this stuff. I was just
Yeah.
trying to make things that were fun.
Mhm.
So it would be counterintuitive for me to say, oh, I chose this path because I wanted to break a certain stereotype. No, I realized that I might be doing that after the fact. So I was doing this from when I was very young. And I think that youthful naivete helps. Another factor I think is, again, you know, I don't think sometimes there is pressure for filmmakers to be in a box, but I mean, we're creatives. Like that, the whole point is like being outside the box sometimes. Like
Mhm.
we're one of the very few people that get to do something different. Like if you're an architect, you have to have certain standards that you maintain. Otherwise, your building's going to crash and fall or whatever. As a filmmaker, your whole job is to paint outside the lines and to try
Mhm.
something weird, and that hasn't been done before. Otherwise, what are we doing here? So I don't know. I think this pressure is sometimes self made up. Sometimes it's real because early on in my career, I was applying for a grant for my film because there are a lot of film grants in Europe. I was
Okay.
applying for a European film grant, and for some of these grants, you have to have a European producer. So I had a European producer come on board my film, and she was telling me, she was guiding me through the process and telling me, "Oh, you get rid of the humor in your film because these festivals and these grants don't like humor." And that made me really, I don't know, it put me into that just a budget about thinking, if there's no humor, what is it? Is it just pure suffering? Like what? So
Mhm.
even the people giving the grants
Okay.
are creating this lens, this Western lens
Mhm.
in which our cinema needs to be seen. So
Yes.
even before creating the movie, even during the grant application process,
Mhm.
the perspective of the films are being shaped by the invisible hand. And I was very young. I was in my 20s, but I didn't like this feeling of these invisible white hands kind of changing my film before it's even made or written. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. That's just not what I want to make. So it's as simple as that. I'd rather find the money elsewhere than kind of have to go through that process. But again, Not everyone's so lucky.
Yeah.
For some people, those grants are the only opportunities there. And for those people, that prestige really matters. That seal of approval from uh, the Western world. So I think in trying to get that seal of approval, we're molding ourselves in their lens. So yeah, if you just as long as you're aware of the system,
Mhm.
then decide what path are you going to take.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think now that we have got you who have been telling authentic, genuine stories, which actually do speak to yourself as an artist, it is probably a bit easier for young filmmakers from Bangladesh or the region of South Asia to be more confidently honest about their work. Maybe it can inspire them in certain ways. I also want to know, like, when your film goes to so many festivals and have that sort of recognition from so many world renowned festivals. What does it mean for you in terms of opening doors and getting new opportunities? Do you really think it has helped you pave certain way?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's helped me. It helped me get an agent and a manager in LA. It's helped me get international projects. It helped me
Hmm.
work in the Hollywood studio system where I have studio projects in the works.
Hmm.
I've sold scripts in LA. So yeah, it's cool. But I don't think I'm going to stop telling local stories. I don't think it's going to hinder that process, but I think it's a parallel process. I really do want to do both. And I think representation in media is important.
Hmm.
Like when you see someone that looks like you, or you watch something and you're like, oh, someone that looks like me or sounds
Yeah,
like me,
definitely.
make a thing. I think it makes you feel a little bit better when you go out. It
Hmm.
makes you feel a little more confident.
Let's talk about Mashari for a bit. If I'm not wrong, it was partly self-financed. You cast your niece and you even taught yourself VFX while you were doing this film. It feels like a very hands-on film. Why did you choose to make it that way?
I mean, that's the only way to make it when you're raising your own money. Um, when you're kind of partly self-financing it. I think every filmmaker's first thought films are going to be like that.
Did that get released after show? For some reason?
Released around the same time. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it Shaw had a longer festival run, so Shaw released to the public after,
Mm-hmm, hmm.
but they released it around the same time in 2022.
All
Although I
right.
made Mate much earlier, and I think they had the idea from when I was a teenager, so it was basically brewing for a very long time.
Mm-hmm, hmm. And how was your journey in international stage? Because I do know there is a very interesting story lurking somewhere behind Mosheri and it's going to festival and opening certain doors for you. I want to know how was that for you?
Yeah, it was very cool. Uh, is again completely unexpected because we just wanted to make a cool horror short. We never really thought of kind of winning awards or going to festivals.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you think when you're making a horror movie. You're not thinking, "Oh my god, I can't wait to win all these awards." No one's saying that. You know, you're just gonna
Uh-huh.
have fun and make a fun, cool movie. Um, and I remember when we won South by Southwest. Um, so, I got a call from someone from Lucasfilms going like, "They saw your film, we liked it." I was like, "You guys make Star Wars. How'd you see my film?" So somehow it would be shared in all these really interesting film circles. And then Sam Raimi, the director of Spider-Man, saw my film and he sent it to his agent, who then signed me on as a client. And yeah, then I got represented by CAA, which is like one of the biggest agencies in America.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, all of that happened in 1 week of Morphe releasing. So it was very crazy time.
Yeah. Of course, I remember like sitting in Bangladesh and reading in Variety. I think if I'm not wrong, and if I'm not like if my memory is not playing games with me, that Jordan Peele and Riz Ahmed are backing Nuhash Humayun's film, and that was so
Yeah.
exciting to read as an audience.
Yeah.
Uh, did that moment shift something inside you as an artist? How did it like affect your work creatively? Did it?
Well, honestly, yeah, that all when I tell that story, it always is a response. Right? If I'm at a Fat Film Festival or I'm at a party in LA or
Mm-hmm.
I'm in New York and, people are talking to you and they're like, oh, hi, whatever. And
Mhm.
then they're like, oh, by the way, this is Nuhash. He's a filmmaker. They're like, oh, okay. And then they're like, oh, he's working with Jordan Peele and Riz Ahmed. Oh, okay. He's working with Universal Studios. Oh, okay. Like it always gets a response and people are sort of, you know, and it's, I think it's easy to get lost in that.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, we live in a world where we don't trust each other and we kind of need seals of approval from other people. Like we need to be like, oh, he's an artist who's already worked with so and so much bigger artists that you know of
Mhm.
and has worked with this company that you know of. And that's what this person therefore has value, right? So I'm not
Yeah.
the biggest fan of that system, but we
Mhm.
live in that system. So, Monkey Paw, Jordan Peele's company and left-handed Rizam Coming have been so helpful in my career. But at the same time, I don't want anyone listening to this to get the wrong message
Mhm.
that, oh, your goal is to collect famous, important, interesting people
Mhm.
who sign off on your name. That's
Mhm.
not what it's about.
Yeah.
You are the interesting person. And if you're doing your job right, wonderful, amazing people will from all over the world will come and support you. And I think
Mhm.
that's what it like. Be original, be authentic. Don't chase other things and other people and other styles. Just do you. And yeah, the names and the fame and the whatever, the labels and the brands and whatever that you're looking for is going to come to you. But if you do it enough, well enough, you become one of those names. You become someone whose name has that value. So I think that's what's important, and not like, oh, how many famous people did you move or who did you work with necessarily.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much for saying this because nowadays, of course, like a big portion of our life is in social media. And of course, these probably mean something more than it is supposed to mean because we like to associate ourselves with big names and celebrities, and those kind of have a visual digital imprint everywhere. And we probably are valuing all of this much more than we should, or much more than what actually is healthy in terms of this. So thank you so much for kind of like defining this for us. Um, of course, from the outside, this kind of international visibility can look very exciting, even glamorous to some extent. But I'm sure there is a lot of unseen work behind it in terms of networking, constantly being visible, and communication, time, energy. And of course, you were working across different time zones as well. How do you personally navigate this part of the journey? Do you like this bit?
Um, yeah, there is a lot of networking and all of that. But once you have an agent, I think you have to do a lot less of that. So again, I'm
Hmm.
very thankful for the position that I'm in.
Hmm.
Um, Uh, last time I wrote a script, it was very easy to sell the script because I just sent it to my agent and he sent it out to people and then I have to
Hmm.
kind of go network and do that. But it is really important in the very early stages of your career, maybe in every stage. Um, all I would say is that all of these parts of the process are part of the filmmaking process, like
Hmm.
networking, raising finances, marketing your movie, all of it is still part of the filmmaking process.
Hmm.
You can't have one without the other. Um, Even editing your trailer, putting that together, that's also filmmaking.
Hmm.
So once you embrace that all of this serves a bigger purpose, I think it becomes easier.
Hmm. Thank you. And you are doing all of this while based in Bangladesh, mostly based in Bangladesh, and not one of the usual industry centers. How hard does these things make practically? Probably it doesn't. I'm just trying to kind of understand this in part.
Um, Obviously, it has its challenges. It would be easier if I was living in LA or New York, maybe, but um, I think the world has shifted since the COVID pandemic, where um, it used to be the industry norm in LA to go on a physical meetings. Now every meeting's on Zoom, even if you're in LA. So COVID really like kind of shifted the normalization of online meetings in the media industry. Because now even actors send themselves tapes. They don't come in in person to audition until it's the final step. Same with filmmakers when they're pitching, it's all over Zoom. So maybe 5 years ago, someone would be like, "Oh, this is a kid from Bangladesh. That's why he's on Zoom." People will be like, "Oh, what? Why?" But now everyone's on Zoom, so it's just not a big deal
Yeah.
where I'm from. But
Mhm.
I would say it is good to sometimes show up in person, say hi to the people you're meeting. I would say making at least one trip to LA or wherever your center is, it's good to
Mhm.
show up in person. There's still something invaluable about that human contact, the awkwardness of being in the same space together. It's important. It's real. So yeah, but again, to completely live there, maybe not completely necessary in today's day.
Mhm. Now that you're talking about like not having to explain yourself, like being a Bangladeshi, why you are there and talking about films, do you think media, like global media, our global film industry is much more equitable and democratized now? I mean, I don't know, people have different perceptions, but of course you are seeing a lot of film festivals and film industries across the globe. So you might be able to give us a perspective about how equitable it really is.
Um, Look, I would say that there are obviously certain people who have advantages. Some people who have family advantages. Some people who have industry connections. All of those things matter. Even if I'm say doing something really simple
Mhm.
as applying to a film festival. Um, there are a lot of big directors whose films have been pre-selected because
Mhm.
those people are famous. There are a lot of films with famous actors, and those films have been pre-selected because they're famous.
Mhm.
Um, so there are obviously advantages. There are obviously market dynamics and capitalism coming into play, even for a festival lineup for a short
Mhm.
film. But there is the chance if you make something interesting or distinct enough, you can still show up on that platform. You could still, that's what happened with Moshe and so many of my things. And I'm seeing happen with a lot of other new Bangladeshi filmmakers with their stuff. Like, yes, there is nepotism and there is advantages, and a lot of people are going in and have advantages you don't. But
Mhm.
I would say there is still a chance that you could come from absolutely no one, nowhere, like nowhere, no one knows, and still show up on the same stage as all these other people. So I would say film and art to some degree has that possibility of you coming from absolutely nowhere and
Mhm.
making a mark.
Yeah. Thank you. I was also thinking about you working with predominantly Bangladeshi actors and crews. Doesn't matter how global and international and transnational your work is right now. Uh, do you feel this certain sort of responsibility to engage with Bangladeshi local actors and crews and not hire them from somewhere else? Like, have you ever consciously thought about this?
Um, the realistic answer is that um, labor is cheaper in Bangladesh, and it's cheaper to work for Bangladeshi film crew, and that's important because we don't always have the biggest budgets when we make these
Hmm.
independent productions.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yes, of course, I'm not working with like a huge cinematographer from Hollywood, but the real answer is if I wanted to, I couldn't. I don't have the money or the connections to get that person on set. I think what it really comes down to, other than the budget, is the idea of community,
Hmm.
which is work with people who want to work with you,
Hmm.
build those people up. That's going to do a lot more for you. Instead of chasing the biggest name,
Hmm.
work with talent who's going to give you the 200%. And
Hmm.
that's a strategy that has worked out really, really good.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I don't want to define you by what festivals you went to and what fellowship you got from certain labs. But of course, you have achieved a lot. I mean, your film won a Grand Jury Prize at SXSW, and then you were the first Bangladeshi Sundance Film. Do you think this resonates in Bangladesh? Do people there understand? I mean, by people, I don't, of course, mean the mass people or common people, but in the industry or in the media, does this mean anything for you? Because these are not very common incidents for us. So when you're putting that much effort in being transnational and when you are coming back home, do you think it resonates with people there?
I don't think a lot of people really get it. I remember last time I was in LA, someone's like, "Oh my God, everything you've achieved, everyone in Bangladesh, you must be really raving about it and really proud." I'm like, I don't think they
Hmm.
really get it, honestly. And you learn to accept it. I think, again, when you're trying to do things a little different
Yeah.
and break certain paths, people aren't going to get it at first. It's going to be a little harder. So, you know, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Did that ever frustrate you?
Um, on every part of this journey is frustrating. I think, and I think as a creative, when is it ever enough? What award or what recognition, or what could
Hmm.
possibly
Hmm.
satisfy you? If you come back to a country and there's a sea of people cheering
Yeah.
your name, I think you would still go home depressed because like artists are always finding something
Hmm.
to be sad about, something negative to look at. So I don't know. I don't think there's any level of satisfaction, respect, or fame that can be satisfy a person.
Hmm. Hmm. And if someone is listening right now who is just starting out from a place like Bangladesh, what do you want to tell them, Nuhas?
I would say that, you know, be a dreamer and a realist at the same time. I always wanted to work in Hollywood, and I was looking at directors I follow, like Ryan Coogler, who made Black Panther, Chloe
Hmm.
Zhao, who made a Marvel movie, because I was into Marvel movies, and I looked up their careers, and I saw they all went to the Sundance Lab. So I made with that one of my goals. I'm going to get into the Sundance Lab. Um, um, then I also wanted to work in Hollywood, and I was wondering, oh, are there examples of people from outside who live outside America who made it to Hollywood? So I saw some examples. One example I saw was a filmmaker called David F. Sandberg who made a short film
Hmm.
called Lights Out. It was a horror short
Hmm.
and it went viral. And he's like, I think it was a Swedish or something filmmaker. He's from Europe. And after that short film went viral, he moved to America and he was paid to make a feature length version of that film. And I thought, oh, maybe I should try making a horror short film. So again, you know, um, like inspiration can come from a lot of places, and look at this look at other people who've already made it and see if there are steps they've taken in their journey that could be useful to you. Study the craft and study the strategies of others who have done what you wish to do.
Hmm.
And there's always like a way, and always start with your own community. Like if you can be the best in the world if you can be the best of your city or your small town. Like, so start here and make something only we can.
Hmm. Thank you, Nuhas. And as you are looking ahead, what kind of work or what kind of pace are you hoping for next?
Let's see. I'm hopefully making my first feature, and uh, doing something a little different from the genre stuff. I'm making something very dramatic. So
Hmm.
that'll be a scary adventure for me. To
Mm.
not make horror is horror for me because I've done so much horror. So to step away from it, that's the real horror. So
Hmm.
that's how it turns out. And I'm excited to try to be different.
Thank you, and best of luck with that, actually. And it's been an absolute delight to talk with you. And thank you so much. This is actually the first podcast we are doing from South Asian in archive. Sorry, South Asian artist in Cinema Collective. And I was very nervous when I started talking with you. And thank you for making this process so much easier for you. And I really do hope that it helps filmmaker, gives them a bit of courage who are starting out from a place like Bangladesh. Thank you so much, Nuhash.
Of course. Thank you for the wonderful questions.